What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today we're going to be talking about EB-02, a booster box, booster set. We still do not know all of the cards in this set. In today's video, we're going to talk mostly about the super rares, the leader, and then so far the sets that this supports, and then we will round it all out with just kind of talking about if I think that this set is worth you picking up. Obviously, some of these cards, and if you know the Enel, if you know, you know. If not, you're going to find out. And it is one of the craziest cards I think Bandai has ever printed. But if you're new to the channel, I'm Vampyr Gaming. I create One Piece content of all the varieties. We do Market Watch, we do competitive and informative videos, and I also like dabble a little bit in like the off meta and just really try to bring the deck that you want to play into the best light possible with the competitive skills that I have. So if that interests you, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and then let's go ahead and dive in and talk about EB-02. So first up here, we're going to take a look. This is the Asian page. You can see it's the Anime 25th collection. This is a full set dedicated to the illustrators of One Piece for the TV show. And it's a great set for them to show off, and we will actually really get to see that as we go through some of these cards. It is very, very just mind-blowing. I can't even describe it because it's very cool, the approach that they took, and it's a very unique set. So I love that inherently. This does not release for us in the US. It's about 3 months later, so we'll probably get this, March? April. I think this set comes out in April for us in the West. But this set, it only has one leader card. It only has 29 commons, so if you're familiar with EB-02, it's basically a half set. There's 21 rares, there's 9 super rares, and there's 1 secret rare. We know the 9 super rares, and we're going to talk about those today, and a couple other cards. And there's 26 special cards, which I'm not sure what that means. And I don't think we've seen an example of it just yet. We saw an alternate art, and perhaps it is the alts, but we also see another card that very well might be what they call these special cards, but to my knowledge, they're just considered rares. So if anybody knows, definitely let me know in the comments below. I haven't seen anything to my knowledge, to my recollection. If so, it's a miss on my part, and I apologize for that. But let's go ahead and we'll dive in. So the last one had 4 leaders. This time around, we are only getting 1, which is fine. But it's very interesting, the approach. I don't know if it's because just nobody used those leaders, and so they just want to focus all their attention on 1. But it definitely gives us a good idea of what we're going to see in the set. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right. So yeah, the leader is a Gerpel Luffy. We've got 4 life, 5,000 power. But what's really interesting about it, and it's super interesting because you remember ST14 Luffy, he also is a 6K leader in essence. This one is, we're right back there again. Activate main once per turn, Dawn -2. If you only have Straw Hat crew type characters in play, set up to 2 of your rested Dawn as active. Then this leader gets plus 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So you'll be a 6K leader. You get to get 2 Dawn back. So once you hit 10, this effect is free and you're a 6K leader for the rest of the game. And then, of course, there's going to be abilities you can combo this with, like Eustace, so then you're going to get 3 Dawn active, you know. So there's going to be a lot of fun things you can do with this leader. I think one of the biggest cards in existing support that stands out to me, right, is going to be the Luffy. You can't use this effect with Eustace. I'm silly, but the 7-drop Luffy from OP-02. The one that plays out another Straw Hat or film card. I think that's going to be a huge piece to this. And then, of course, you'll have 7K blocker, 6K leader type vibes. And, yeah, there's a little bit of support in the set already for him. You know, we just had the full purple Luffy deck. We just had PB Luffy. So all of those have purple support at its core. And then you, of course, have very fair green cards. So it'd be really interesting to see how this plays out, especially with that requirement for the Straw Hat crew, which allows you, which really hones in the cards you can play, or you just no longer get to utilize and leverage this leader. But let me know in the comments below. Are you guys a fan of this leader? I think he has a lot of potential, especially if the support is there. And so just overall support that we've kind of seen so far, we do see East Blue, which is like the green side, and it makes sense. And there's GP Luffy or Gerpa Luffy support overall. With like, you know, we're seeing there's like a purple Robin. We're seeing a purple Frankie. We're seeing green East Blue. So it's Zoro, Nami, and they have types that, you know, will work with other leaders like Arlong, I believe, is in East Blue, but specifically Captain Kuro or Clawhador, you know. And then we see a little bit of like yellow. We saw the Mary, so I don't know if it's going to go Robin support / potential yellow Straw Hat and OP11. Galley Law Company, we see a little bit of support there, which makes sense. We saw a little bit in EB-01. It seems like EB-02 is really just carrying on that. And then Bonnie / like green, we see Impel down again, kind of makes sense. We see a Magellan leader, not Magellan, what's his name, I can't think of the other guy. Hannibal, we see another Hannibal leader in EB-01. Makes sense that there'll be a little bit of Impel down because there's a new Magellan card. We get a brand new Garp, which is Garp support. And then of course Arlong, with like there's a whole Arlong card that specifically supports Arlong. And then the set is advertised to support Alabasta and Dressrosa. We see cards that are possibly Navy and Smoker support, and just more to come. I really think these little sets are a great addition to the whole umbrella of sets because it focuses on giving like legacy decks support. And we're really going to see that as we jump into these super rares. So it's like, we haven't forgot about you. Here's some extra cards. And it gives them a little bit more power, a little bit more potential, and a little bit more playability for those decks that you love. So now let's talk about the best cards. You're probably looking at these wondering, what are these? So these, again, I don't like, it just shows as a rare. I don't know if these are those special cards that we mentioned that there's 26 of in the set, or if this just falls under a regular rare. But all of these, as you can see, they're designed on keyframes. So again, the set is tapping into these animators, these artists for the TV show. And these are keyframe animations for One Piece opening songs, which is absolutely amazing. And they've got just this little sketch-like vibe to them. And these cards break the game. This is the second most obtuse Rubber Goose thing I've seen in this set. And so let's take a look at what they do. If you know, you know. But if you don't, and this is your first time seeing this card, and this goes for every color. There is this in every color. I know I showed 3. That was just to fill the page. There was one of these for every color. And they're all different songs. This one is Brand New World. It's a purple, but it's main. Look at the top 4 of your deck. Reveal 1 card with a cost of 4 or more and add it to your hand. Then place the rest of the bottom of your deck in any order. It's a 2 cost. It is a 2 cost. You know who costs more than 8? Or more than 4? Gecko Moria. You know who costs more than 4? 10-drop Ace. 9-drop Yamato. 9-drop Zoro. 9-drop Shanks. 10-drop Shanks. All of these cards that see play, that Shanks has a searcher, but a lot of these other ones in their respective color haven't had a searcher. And guess what? To make it even better, you trigger it, you can just activate main. While granted it is only 4 instead of 5, this card and the next card I'm going to show you makes Enel absolutely insane. Because not only do they have a searcher for any top end in Enel, they got yellow dunking on y'all. This is the craziest. I reread this card like 7 times. And then I'll kind of like, on the surface, if you're not super familiar with One Piece or even just like a competitive aspect of a card game, I'll break it down here for you guys. But this is a 10 cost. If your leader has Sky Island, so Enel or Kalgara, and he's good without this, he gains Rush, but he's even better with this. This card is playable in every aspect without that ability. When attacking, you may trash 1 card from your hand. If your life has 1 or less cards, place up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life, then give this character plus 1,000 power for this turn. This card could have been printed as a 10k and still been absolutely insane, and without it gaining 1,000 power. This card would still be absolutely insane. But they said 11. 11, which is the strongest card. Now, in Enel's repertoire, the reservoir, whatever, the strongest card, and he's swinging for 12. You cannot answer this with a body unless if you played Shanks, 10-drop Rush, during your turn, then they play this and swing without a blocker. Otherwise, you are not clearing this body. And so this creates an aspect where in a yellow world, every deck has to run an answer to this, and not every deck has an answer to this. There is green with Shanks. There's blue with Red Rock. I don't think there's any other card that just has a one-card remove. Oh, Rygo. Yeah. So the 3 colors, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 colors have the answer to this card. 3 just straight up don't have an answer to play a card and organically answer this, which is insane. And it's a recurring heal. Enel has never had that before. So what you can do is you can play this card, then your next play, you can either heal 2 or you don't even have to heal. The biggest advantage that we had on Enel was if we put them back to where their life is, they have to play a healing body and they can't do other plays. For the first time ever, Enel can do other plays if this body's established. And he's now searchable by a 2-cost event that will find all their other top end. And he's searchable by Shura. So that's fantastic. This card is the craziest thing. This is just one of the 9 super rares. We're going to get into the other super rares. But I wanted to really take a moment to focus on this card because Enel is just, in my opinion, I think it's going to be the best deck by miles with this and the Searcher. But there's still a whole set to be revealed. But I have a bad feeling this card is going to be terrible for the game. It's going to change how we have to run our decks, and it's going to make emphasis on the colors that have answers to this. Now, let's talk about the other super rares. So first up, we have a Vegapunk. Again, you know, Vegapunk has continually seen support in, I believe, the past 3 sets, which is huge. Maybe not OP10. I'm not super familiar off the top of my head, but on play, top 5, you're searching for a Scientist, a 5-cost or lower, and you get to play it. So you can play Lilith, you can play Shaka. I believe you play Shaka. You can play... who's the fighting one? Atlas. There we go. Ha ha! And then you can play it so it bridges while also establishing you a blocker for 1. So you're going to go play 2 bodies, and bodies just matter having them in general, but you can play 2 while also, you know, this could become a value play with Lilith, which is a huge momentum driver for the deck overall, or even play out the KO Luffy, or just, it gets you, it's essentially another Searcher, but it's going to play the body with it and give you a blocker, which is great in a Doflamingo meta. And then you place the rest on the bottom, and then if your opponent has 2 or less characters, you discard a card. So, like, it does have a little bit of, like, a neg, but if your opponent goes wide, like Doflamingo, you play this mid-game, phenomenal. And if you trigger, you draw a card. So you can put in your life, draw a card. Or you can hit. You know what's crazy? You can go double blocker, because you can go the I Rayquaza your help. It hits your life. You play him. His ability activates. You play Shaka. Boom. Double blocker. Sinjamin Bengoku. He's insane. Maybe. This is like where I'm going with Smoker Sport. He's got counters, so he's super playable. And he's a blocker. Super playable. And then on play, so like Jack is a cool play, but you can spit out a Kuzan from yo trash. He is rested. But this Sengoku can protect him by turning himself sideways. You see? It's very smart. And then, of course, you get to bring back that Kuzan, draw a card. Your opponent has to answer that Kuzan as you're going into a Gekkomori turn. I think this card is really big. It's really big specifically for Smoker, less so for Lucci, because Lucci isn't playing those Navy cards, and this is going to give you just a little bit more when you play that Navy engine, which Smoker does. Can't play Tashigi. That'd be nasty. But you can get a Kuzan, which I think is really good. Now, this is really interesting as well. Nefertari Vivi. So this, of course, feels like blue-yellow or blue-red Vivi support. 3 cost, 2,000 power. Not great stats. On play if your leader is multicolored and you have 5 or less cards, draw 2 cards. 1, it's great because Nami cannot play it. 2, it's great because Marco, this gives you a new value play in Marco while also establishing a threat while it is a 2k body, which is unfortunate. If this was 3-3, I would absolutely love this, but it gives you 2 new cards. It's essentially a peel off, but it's a body, and when you trigger it out of life, it's a 1k instead of a brick. Obviously, you trigger a peel off, it lets you draw 2, but you could just be guaranteed no counter. So it's got its trade-offs, but it's like another way to peel off while, again, giving you that body. And then, of course, it's playable in Vivi as well. Vivi does usually typically have a gigantic hand mid-game, but in the early game, this can be a great turn 3 play. Just establish this, draw 2, and then you have a body as opposed to, of course, if you had peel off. Now, Trafalgar. All right, so he's got counter. He's a 5/6. He really likes to be a 5/6 blocker. Bandai just loves him as a 5/6. You may return 2 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order. Then choose one of the following. You can draw a card, or if your opponent has 5 cards or more in their hand, they can discard 1 card from their hand. Now, this is really cool because you can play the Dressrosa, and with Stage, you can do an attack, and you can make your opponent lose a card, which is just very nice. When you play a card, force your opponent to lose a card, because if they have 5 or more and they just lose 1, it's really good. Especially if you do a swing before that, put them at 5, then you play this, and it forces them to 4. Or if you need a value play, you can go up 1. So it goes both ways. I think it's a very balanced card. I think it's a nice addition to the Dressrosa suite. Now we got Arlong. You know, we talked a little bit about how there's some Arlong support in this, and here we see it. So, and it's again like East Blue or Fishman. So you got Arlong or Kuro, and then you can give up to 1 Rested Dawn to your leader, then up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or more or less cannot be rested until the end of your opponent's next turn. Which means they can't swing with it. They can't block with it. Things like that, which is super interesting. And then, of course, Arlong, you know, you get that Dawn attachment, which is big for his leader ability. No trigger, though. And then we've got Yamato, which is a super interesting card. But Red-Green Odin, once again, circling back to these leaders from EB-01, getting more support in EB-02, which I think just makes sense and is very nice, but it also is Portgas the Ace support. So activate main once per turn if your leader has the Land of Wano type or is Portgas the Ace. Give up to 1 Rested Dawn to your leader. Then this card gains Rush during this turn. So it's crazy because, 1, you can repeatedly use this. Huge for my man Odin, because he's going to continually be able to play on curve while becoming on, because it's activate main. It's not on play. It's activate main. And then you get to play it, boom, use the ability, gets around Blackbeard, and you're going to have a rusher. And you get to continually give 1 Dawn to your leader. And it breaks my heart. Like, this card was 5/7. This card would be the absolute honkers bonkers. But it isn't. So it is what it is. This is going to take away my YouTube revenue, too. That's crazy. But this card is very good. Very good for Odin. Also really good for Ace. A 6/7 rusher is still quite a threat. And then also being able to continually give a Dawn while playing curve, just to put a little bit more aggression, is going to be big. Then, of course, we already talked about this guy, but got him in here. The Enel. This card's busted. Remember this. Pick up your yellow alts. I did a whole video just the other day about yellow and cards that I think could be key. So keep your eyes on those. But we've got Sanji and Pudding. So a little bit. It's not Pudding support. Sorry, but it is like PB Luffy. It's during your turn, once per turn, when 2 or more of your Dawn cards are returned to your Dawn deck, set up to 1 Dawn card from your deck as active. So it's like a unique Eustace in that fact, but was when you -2, so then you get the ramp 1. And then it's on play if your number of Dawn cards are equal to or less than your opponent's draw cards. So it can give you a card. You can play it off a Luffy Taro, which is crazy. You spit out 5/7 off a Luffy Taro, and you can draw 1. So that's also, yeah. But you're probably ahead, unless you played in like mid game, like late game. But still, probably fine. But yeah, and then you like PB Luffy, and then you got just a solid stat body. Then we got Jewelry Bonnie, and a lot of people are conflicted on this card. I think this card is really good. It is on play up to one of your opponent's rested characters will not become active during your opponent's next refresh step. Then, at the end of your turn, set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. So you get your active Dawn. It's like that one guy with the wings. A Roach. And it's a 7/7 with counter. So it's Bonnie with counter, but it gives you a 7 curve. Previously, Bonnie didn't really have a 7 curve. Now they can go Cabbage Patch into Jewelry Bonnie, into Zoro, into 10-drop Dofi, or, you know, outside of Hody. Hody was a 7, so I'll give him that. But, like, this gives you a searchable turn 7 play. So does the event. Searchable Hody, searchable Eustace, searchable top end anything. Anything you can think of, it's got inside for you. So, so what? Is it worth it? I don't know. Again, I really dislike the half boosters. We don't know what the secret does, but he's a 6/7 Luffy that's purple. So we know that, but we don't know what he does. Is it worth it? I really, you know, there's the EB-01. I loved EB-01. I loved the EB-01 thesis. I think there's the argument it's going to be similar, but I feel like they've learned their lesson from EB-01, and they're just going to try to not repeat that in EB-02. And so far, the super rares, they don't feel very stapley, besides Enel. Enel seems cracked. It'll be interesting. I still think you just buy singles on release. They're going to be cheap. You're going to get everything you need. And then everything will, like, you know, figure its way out in time. But I think on release, OP-09 stock was great. The Wave 2 was great. OP-09's way more hype. Maybe they printed more stock than they will EB-02. But I wouldn't buy sealed, like, I wouldn't pay over MSRP for a sealed booster box. That's where I'm at. I passed up pre-ordering one at $83. So I wouldn't pay $83, but that's just me. You know, you got it like that, you got it like that. You know, who am I to tell you what to do with your money? But as a player who wants you to play this game as cheap and effective as possible, I would say, you know, still, it's just always buy singles. Always buy singles. Release week is usually a really great time. And then, especially on these, like, side sets, I think they kind of work their way out over time. But on release, I still think it's a pretty good grab. But I personally don't have any pre-ordered. I think, you know, long-term, sure. But I think there's going to be a lot more value and opportunity out there. So, as always, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you found this content of value, you could just do me a favor, click that button. Costs you nothing. And as always, thank you so much for watching.